So we're going to wrap up our study of nonprofit organizations by revisiting the concept of social entrepreneurship. We did talk about social entrepreneurship in earlier chapters when we discussed the double bottom line and the earned income strategies, but because of the prominence of social entrepreneurship in today's study of the nonprofit sector, we're going to revisit this and talk about it a little bit more in depth. So entrepreneur, the word entrepreneur comes from the French verb that means to undertake. And it was originally defined from an economic perspective. Jean-Baptiste Say, French economist, said that someone who creates value by improving efficiency and effectiveness in the use of a society's limited resources is an entrepreneur. Then Joseph Schumpeter, who was an Austrian economist, later said that an entrepreneur is someone who identifies an opportunity, creates a venture to pursue it, ultimately upsets the status quo, and makes the previous products and services and approaches obsolete. There's two perspectives or two schools of thoughts about social entrepreneurs. The first being the social enterprise school. And this is when someone starts a business with a social purpose. This coincides with the common usage of the term entrepreneur and is virtually synonymous with the earned income strategies that we talked about earlier. So the social enterprise school would be someone who starts a business with a social purpose, and it's synonymous with the earned income ventures. So that's the first one, and you should be very familiar with that. The second is the social innovation school, and this is somebody who identifies an opportunity, undertakes direct action to pursue it, and produces change as a result. So the change is the difference here. It produces change as a result. This is a broader definition than social entrepreneurship perspective, and the social entrepreneur is the innovator and the change agent. This is the emphasis on creating wide-scale change at the systemic level. So understand the difference between those two perspectives, between the enterprise school and the innovation school. So now let's talk a little bit about the theories of social entrepreneurship. There's a discussion in your book that talks about the theories of entrepreneurship being analogous to the theories of leadership, meaning they would be similar or the same, that we talked about in Chapter 5. And that would be where the theories emphasize the characteristics or the traits of individuals who become entrepreneurs. And then other theories talk about behaviors, things that entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs in particular do. And still others stress the environment in which the entrepreneurship occurs and takes a situational approach, arguing that entrepreneurship occurs when an individual with the right characteristics coincides with the circumstances and the environment that are conducive to entrepreneurship activity. And then there are other models that seek to integrate the various approaches. So to continue our discussion of the theories of social entrepreneurship, there are certain demographic characteristics that have been identified for entrepreneurs. For example, their entrepreneurship activity is more likely to be found among immigrants, firstborn children, and individuals who suffered some trauma at earlier points in their lives. They also may have undertaken their entrepreneurial endeavors around certain milestone ages, like 30, 40, or 50. And then other research is focused on psychological characteristics of entrepreneurs, finding that they exhibit innovativeness and achievement orientation, independence, a sense of control over destiny. They have low risk aversion, a tolerance for ambiguity, and also a high community awareness and social concern. So what about behaviors? Adopting a mission to create and sustain social value is critical for social entrepreneurs. It takes priority over generating profit. So instead of going for the quick fix, social entrepreneurs look for ways to create lasting improvements. They recognize and relentlessly pursue new opportunities that serve their mission. If others see problems, entrepreneurs see opportunities. Social entrepreneurs have a vision of how to achieve their goals, and they're determined to make their vision work. They engage in a process of continuous innovation, adaptation, and learning. They look for innovative ways to ensure that their ventures create social value, and they obtain the needed resource and funding as long as they are creating value. They act boldly without being limited to resources currently at hand. They are skilled at doing more with less and attracting resources from others. They explore all options, from pure philanthropy to the commercial methods of business sector, but they're not bound by the norms or the traditions. They exhibit a heightened sense of accountability to the constituencies served for the outcomes created. Social entrepreneurs will take steps to ensure that they're creating value. They seek to provide real social improvements to their beneficiaries and the communities, as well as attractive social and/or financial return to their investors. So your book discusses different theories of social entrepreneurship, including the environment, as well as some models that are integrated. So the discussion on the environment will talk about what it is in the environment itself that may stimulate the change. And that is where there may be some inefficiencies, some injustices to the status quo. You want to read about when some of those business ventures occurred, and they were typically as a result of some kind of change going on within the environment itself. There may have been a shift in certain regions of the world, there may have been increased in communications, there may have been shifted in attitudes, there could be changes in the government. There's some kind of disruptive force in the government that provides different opportunities. So there's a whole discussion about the environment itself. And then there are also integrated theories. Now you will recall from earlier chapters that we discussed integrated theories where there are certain external conditions and internal characteristics that converge to provide opportunities for the entrepreneurial process to unfold. And that's what we'll talk about in the figure 16.1 on forces of entrepreneurship. So in 2008, Critchfield and Grant wrote a book called Forces for Good: 6 Practices of High-Impact Nonprofits. And this is where they made an attempt to identify and analyze the high-impact nonprofits, who were the catalytic agents of change, and who were the forces for good. And they found that there were 6 practices that were common to exemplary organizations. So the first was that the organizations advocate and serve. They are both advocacy as well as service organizations. And over time, all of the organizations evolved to offer both advocacy and also by developing and offering programs. They make the markets work for them. Some had corporate partnerships, some had earned income, others relied primarily on philanthropy, but they all used the market forces and understood the private sector methods would work in their nonprofit organizations. They inspired evangelists. They all created committed advocates on their behalf. They nurtured nonprofit networks. They all formed partnerships with other nonprofits as well as the government. They mastered the art of adaptation. They were capable of adjusting their strategies to environmental changes, and they shared leadership. The CEOs of the organizations empowered others, and they delegated authority within their organizations to become more effective. This slide is telling you that social entrepreneurship is becoming more and more important, not only in the United States but around the world. And there are 2 examples of international social entrepreneurship you'll want to read about in your book in this section. Figure 16.1 is a graphic illustration of the forces on entrepreneurship. Now you'll see at the center the social entrepreneurship process begins as a result of the external at the top and the internal at the bottom forces. And the environmental factors would include things such as social climate, which is conducive to social entrepreneurship, and a political climate that would facilitate social innovation, as well as the availability of financial and non-financial resources, and changes within the political and cultural and economic environments. And now internally, the entrepreneurial personality traits would influence the social entrepreneurship process, as well as a preparation to exploit the opportunities in education as well as their individual experiences. Those would be within the person themselves, those traits within and the forces within the person themselves. This slide is to remind you to read about the successes in social entrepreneurships that are outlined in your textbook. And this slide is also another reminder for you to read about Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Bank. And this individual was a pioneer in the field of microfinance, where they provide the small interest-free loans without collateral to enable poor people to start businesses. And a lot of those loans go to women. There's a focus on solutions to global poverty from the local level. And there's a discussion about the flaws in the free markets, the governments, and the nonprofits in the book, and also about social businesses as a proposed solution to a lot of the problems. So there's a debate, obviously, that's generated by the entry for-profit companies into microfinance markets, which are typically have been served by nonprofit organizations, and you want to read about those. But this slide is to go over the microfinance nonprofit efforts and the success of those as they relate to solutions to global poverty. So this is the final slide in our whole study of nonprofit organizations to give you the overview and the foundation of understanding what nonprofit organizations are and what they do for society. Now, more and more professional business skills are essential for your success in operating nonprofit organizations, and these would include marketing skills, financial management, and strategic planning. So the more of those professional business skills you can have and adopt and offer, the more likely you are to be successful in this area. Your commitment and your passion for the organization's mission and your ability to lead, envision, and communicate as well as inspire will be critical to your success. And finally, I would like to wish you all the very best in your future, because you now have an understanding of the basic knowledge, the basic skills, and the understanding of how nonprofits organizations operate and what they should be doing in the future to be as successful as possible. Now that you know how to be successful in working within nonprofit organizations, it's up to you, and you can change the world. I'm excited to see it happen.